नमस्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. Today's topic of discussion is the East and the West. What are the fundamental differences between the East and the West? Cultural differences, linguistic, historical, political, social, and also racial. If you look at human history, two great civilizations originated from the distant past. So because this Vedic civilization or Indian civilization, how old it is, we don't know exactly. It says 5,000 years old. Many scholars actually, they are not of one opinion with regard to the origin of this Vedic civilization. Undoubtedly, this is one of the oldest civilization, or perhaps the oldest civilization. Maybe on the earth, ours is the oldest civilization. The civilization that started in this Ganga, Yamuna, Doyab, maybe the oldest civilization in the world. And other great civilizations started on the banks of Euphrates and Tigris, the Mesopotamian civilization. And China also is one of the oldest civilizations, the civilization that started on the Yangtze, Kiam. So other civilizations, you see Central America, the Mexican, the Peruvian, the Maya civilization, many ancient civilizations existed. They came and they disappeared, many of them. There are very few continuing civilizations, and Indian civilization is one of the continuing civilizations. So what is the resilience? What is the power behind the Indian civilization? If you just see the races, as Swamiji says, Swami Vivekananda, so this particular geography that is nestled between the towering Himalayas in the north and the three oceans in the south, two seas and one ocean. This particular geography is in a way, geographically it is settled, placed in such a way that not many invasions came here. Not many could invade this country. For a prolonged period of time, we enjoyed a lot of peace. The people who inhabited this geography. So that helped the people over here to cultivate the intellect and progress spiritually. As Swamiji says, Swami Vivekananda, so leisure is necessary for intellectual and spiritual development, for poetry, for arts and literature. You are constantly fighting with somebody. You are always living in insecurity. You don't know who will come tomorrow and invade you and disrobe you. In such a situation, it won't be possible to grow intellectually also. Because you're always in a kind of tension, right? Because there is no security for your life. Either you have to fight with somebody or somebody will invade you and actually take possession of all that you possess. So in such a situation, it's not possible to cultivate the intellect. So, there is a saying in English, when Greek meets Greek, there will be tug of war. There will be tug of war. So ancient Greek civilization, if you see, the Macedonians and the Athenians. The Macedonia is the northern part of the Greece, and also it covers the present Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia. They're all Macedonians, they are people who inhabited the mountains. And the real civilization, actually, when they talk about the Greek civilization, the Athenians, actually, ancient Greek, the Athenians, are the people who inhabited that city Athens, and the people who lived around that. Swamiji says that actually they had migrated from Asia Minor, and those are the people, actually, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and they lived comparatively peaceful life, and there actually flourished a great civilization for some period of time. And afterwards, actually, the Macedonians migrated north and they wielded the political power. And then Alexander was one of the Macedonians. And within the turmoil and the turbulence, thereafter, actually, Greece never, flourished like that in terms of philosophy, engineering, arts, or literature. So a lot of battles had happened for some time. Actually, they had the glory, the Greek civilization and also the Roman civilization. Afterward, they perished because they used to conquer other kingdoms and sometimes they used to get invaded and they would lose the battle. So whereas in India, the situation was completely different. For a prolonged period of time, the climate is such, it's easy actually to grow food, right? It's very easy to grow food. And so that enabled you, our forefathers, to focus on inner growth and inner enrichment. So they thought on the most important things about life, for example, death. What happens post death? Where the man will go? What is the mystery of death? It's not just simple intellectual question that they had asked themselves. They wanted to have an answer. And they pondered deep on that. Then they reflected, then they turned inward, and then found out the mystery that human being is essentially a soul. That essentially that infinite and immortal dimension is in us. But now actually it finds a rediscovery, as it were. You need to be aware of that. In this actually small frame of flesh and blood, the infinite power is now coiled up. It has to become kinetic. It has to find expression. Then they have developed the methods that help the individual to express it to its fullest extent. So once you become successful in manifesting it to its fullest extent, then you will become free. So you will get enlightened. You will discover that the principle of unity in the midst of this diversity. So to find out that one thing in the midst of all this variety and diversity, that is the goal of life. They could figure it out. Therefore, that is the goal of science also. So physics also, what they're trying to do is this. That one force, that one energy which explains the whole. They have been trying for some decades, but they will not be able to achieve. But whereas in ancient India, our people had pondered deep on the mystery of existence, as we have discussed here many times. The creation is only an appearance in the firmament of your own mind, O man. It's not a simple truth. It's not an ordinary discovery, a grand discovery. Creation is only an appearance in the firmament of your mind. If it is real, it should be there all the 24 hours. When you go to deep sleep, the creation disappears for you, but you don't pay attention to this everyday experience of your life. When there is no mind, there is no creation. Creation, though it's grand and vast and phenomenally complex and infinite and beautiful, but it doesn't exist all the 24 hours. When you are asleep, when your mind is actually resting, when the mind is actually withdrawn, then actually the world also disappears. So then they came to the first conclusion that the world exists only in relation to the mind. It's only an appearance in the firmament of the mind. Then actually their attention turned. What is the mind? Why should I suffer? What are the suffering that you have? Of course, the joys that you get also from the mind. So it's a mixture, little suffering and little joy. And then they had this ambition that, why should I suffer? Okay. Some joy is also coming from the world for sure. But why should there be suffering? Can't I have only joy? Then they've tried to find out from where actually this joy is coming, from where that misery is coming. The source of joy and source of misery is the same instrument, that is the mind. Then the second question they had put to themselves, then what is the mind actually? So whole world actually appears in the firmament of mind. Pleasure and pain are happening in the mind. Then what is the mind? Why should I suffer helplessly? Can't I have only happiness through the mind? They tried, but then understood that mind is by nature a mixture of two. The universe is by nature actually made up of polarities, made up of dvandvas in Sanskrit. So then they understood that mind is polarities. Mind is bipolar by nature. Mind is full of pairs of opposites, dvandvas. So if you really want to know yourself and if you really want to have only happiness or joy, you need to transcend the mind itself. Then they came to the conclusion that mind is based on this aham, limited individuality, this I thought or desire, the one and the same. So let me focus on myself, let me conquer this desire and let me conquer this I sense, what will happen? So they had the audacity, they had that boldness to ponder deep on the nature of the mind, on the mystery of existence. They turned their attention inward, and of course, they could crack the mystery. That's why thereafter they declared that Shrunvantu Vishve Amritasya Putra. Man, you listen, you are the Amritasya Putra. The immortality is there in you. And then, of course, so much of teaching has come to us in the form of Upanishads, in the form of Brahma Sutras, in the form of Puranas, all the vast spiritual literature that we have that today. They have passed it on to the next generation through a series of Guru Shishya Parampara. And we are super rich with regard to spiritual wisdom. That knowledge, actually, why should we seek that knowledge? That knowledge gives you immortality. That knowledge makes you happy forever, because it's called bliss. So that's why this is the highest knowledge. Not that we are just saying because we have discovered that we are saying it is the highest knowledge. That knowledge which makes you immortal, and that knowledge actually which makes you free from all kinds of suffering, should be the highest knowledge for sure. And so this civilization is the greatest civilization and the highest civilization in the world. From that perspective, we are saying, whereas you just see the West, the present European civilization or American civilization, they're all the remnants of this ancient Greek and Roman civilizations, right? The Greeks and Romans, they had actually great ideas for some period of time, and afterwards, when actually the barbarian attacks, when you read history, they said the Goths and Gauls, the French people, the Vikings, and the Germans and the French people, they attacked the Roman civilization because the Romans had exploited them, Romans had conquered them, Romans had used them as slaves, and all the great structures that you see today in Rome, so all are actually built by slaves. A lot of labor exploitation had happened. So once you conquer a kingdom, actually, all the people belong to you. You bring them, actually, you make them work for you for lifelong. So with minimum food, nothing actually. You can't ask that, what are my human rights? Today we are living in a democratic country and you ask for my rights. But in those days, if you get subjugated or somebody comes and conquers you, that's all. You become the slave of that particular king. And whatever the king says, and you will have to do his bidding. And so by using that slave labor, they constructed such grand structures. So that was, 3rd century and 4th century BC. So Greek and Roman civilization, they were fighting and fighting and fighting. Sometimes they would conquer others, sometimes they get conquered. And ultimately those civilizations, became extinct because these Goths and Gauls and Vikings, they just wanted to take revenge. And because of a lot of luxury, Romans actually particularly, because they had conquered so many nations, so much of wealth, so much of opulence, so much of luxury. So they just went about indulging in anything, right? When wealth actually accumulates, what you will do with wealth? If you don't have the spiritual culture, you will not share it with others. You just want to enjoy it for yourself. And that kind of enjoyment and that kind of indulgence went to such an extent that the Greeks and Romans in the beginning, who are a mighty military power, slowly, all that military might had gone. And when the right opportunity, when they got these Gauls and Goths and Vikings from the northern Europe, they invaded this Rome and Greece, and they wanted to take revenge, and they took revenge, and they burned the city. They say for so many days, actually, the city, Rome actually got burned, but still the remnants, the constructions, the structures were so grand that they could not destroy all, because it was not one day. Years together, they constructed, they went on constructing and created those structures. And so this fighting went on, and just you come to the medieval period and same thing happened. There were religious wars, there were political wars. You might have heard the name Crusades. Christians fought with Muslims. So in the 11th century, 12th century and 13th century, because all these holy sites of Christians, for example, Jerusalem, they were under the control of Muslims, and Western Europe totally became Christian. And because these holy shrines went into the hands of Muslims, and they wanted to take back those holy shrines, particularly Jerusalem, from Muslims. And then the Pope had given a call. So if you fight this war, if you die in the battle, you will go to heaven. All your sins will be forgiven. This world and the next world also. You will go to heaven. Passport to heaven is promised. And so thousands and thousands of people, they were not warriors, they were not soldiers, but they had come forward. But they believed that Pope's word was ultimate. They believed that actually by participating in this war, we would get a passport to heaven. And it's actually kind of holy war. These Christians, they never used the word holy war, but they started it. They wanted to take back their holy shrines. And then invaded for nearly 250 years, from the last decade of the 11th century to the end of 13th century, for nearly 200 years. They fought such wars, the Crusaders. They came and invaded the Turkey and also Asia Minor. And then they fought war after war. The massacred people of other faiths, the Jews, particularly Muslims, they received the burnt. And Muslims put up actually a firm resistance and they fought for 200 years like that. They were not successful in completely wresting the places from the Muslim possession. But the wars happened, bloodiest wars. But if you look at India, never actually such wars happened in the name of religion. Political wars were there, but never that sanguinary, that bloodthirsty wars. So if you just look at our country, 3rd century BC, Ashoka, Chanda Ashoka, in the beginning he was called, and later on actually he became merciful Ashoka. After the battle of Kalinga, he got transformed completely. He had that war lust in the beginning. He wanted to expand the empire. He wanted to rule the entire Bharatavarsha. But in the process, he made an attempt. But after the Kalinga war, seeing the victims of war, suddenly he felt remorse. So if I continue with this ambition of having a huge empire for myself, I'll have to fight more battles. And in the process, I will have to kill more number of people. Is it worth doing for the sake of this? Just, I'm ruling a vast empire. This is just an egoistic idea, that's all, right? Will it help you actually to enhance your experience of life? Ashoka reflected and then he thought actually it's not worth going for such kind of war. The ambition that to rule a mighty empire itself is a wrong ambition. He understood, he got transformed. Otherwise he could have become another Alexander kind of man. So that battle of Kalinga was sufficient to transform himself. Then he embraced Buddhism, and he became a great patron of Buddhism. The Buddha's ideas of mercy, Buddha's ideas of non-killing and doctrine of Dhamma and practicing self-control, practicing meditation and realizing one's own real nature, attaining to nirvana, that has become the goal of a king and also the subjects. You just imagine, because when king embraced a great religion and actually started preaching the doctrine himself and wanted the subjects to follow that, what a great civilization would flourish. People all became spiritually inclined because yatha raja tata praja. The king set himself as an example and wanted his subjects to follow that. Not only that, you just imagine the sacrifice of Ashoka. He sent his son, Mahendra, in Pali language it is Mahinda, to Sri Lanka as a Buddhist missionary. The only religion, Vivekananda says, that did not use sword to spread itself actually is Buddhism. Hinduism has never been a proselytizing religion. We never believed in converting somebody into our faith. Though we have been doing it so gently, we are never actually, in the sense that if the people like it and then they can follow the doctrine. But we don't actually ask them to get converted into this religion. And the only religion in the world, a missionary religion, Buddhism is also a missionary religion, but Hinduism and Judaism, they are not missionary religions. They are not proselytizing religions. They don't believe in conversion or converting people of other faiths into their faith. So we never actually ventured out to actually bring other people of other faiths into our faith. So Buddhism actually missionary religion, but without using sword, they conquered half of the world. Way back in 3rd century BC. So Ashoka, the king, sent his son to Sri Lanka in those days, 3rd century BC. No flights were not there. Only they had to use ships. And ships are also not as modern ships. So his son went to Sri Lanka and he transformed the then ruler of Sri Lanka. He actually embraced Buddhism. In a way, I think Devanam Titta, something like that. So that king actually got transformed. And not only the king of Sri Lanka, and his queen also wanted to be initiated into the path. And she asked him actually, I also want to practice the doctrine. Let Mahendra help me. Let Mahendra explain me the doctrine. Then Mahendra told actually, so I'm a monk actually. I cannot teach doctrine to women. Then as a monk actually, in those days actually, the doctrine was there, the rule was there, the monastic conduct. So it was not in line with the monastic conduct. So I cannot actually initiate you into the path, you being a woman. Then he said that I'll send my sister. So he sends word to his father Ashoka, send actually sister also. And Sangamitra, Pali language Sangamitra is a Sangamitra, Ashoka's daughter. She was just 18 years old at the time and she became a nun, and Ashoka sends his own daughter, makes her a nun and sends her to Sri Lanka to preach Buddhism, Bodhidharma. Those days you just see the sacrifice of the king. 18 years old daughter, she becomes a nun and comes to Sri Lanka to preach a great doctrine. And they say that Ashoka actually had given his daughter one begging bowl, also a relic of Buddha. And he himself went all the way to Bodh Gaya and picked up a small branch of that Mahabodhi tree and had given to her. And that she planted in that Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka. Today also the tree exists, the great Bodhi tree. So one is the small branch actually they had taken from Mahabodhi tree of Bodh Gaya. Ashoka himself gives it to his daughter. And they say, the legend has it that there was a procession from Bodh Gaya to this Bay of Bengal. Bodh Gaya to the Bay of Bengal, where actually she had to board the ship. So there was a huge procession in those days. 18-year-old daughter of the emperor, she became a nun, and then actually she was going to another country to preach dharma, and she never went back to Magadha. For a lifetime, actually, she stayed in Sri Lanka, and for a full lifetime, actually, she preached dharma, the Sangamitra. And you just see and hear that means the people here in this part of the geography are ready to sacrifice anything for the sake of religion and for the sake of the total fulfillment that comes only through spiritual path by pursuing the truth. Seeking the truth actually has been the goal of this race. Truth and truth and truth alone. Who am I? Why have I come into the world? What lies beyond death? That has been the quest here, not just providing for the physical necessities of life. So whereas in other countries, the conditions were different, because you see in the Greeks and Romans and these Northern Europeans, the Vikings, Gauls and Goths, they constantly used to fight with each other. In the medieval period, the fight between Muslims and Christians, Constantinople actually, present Istanbul, it actually stood as the capital of the Eastern Byzantine Empire for quite a long period of time. So sometimes Muslims will go and invade that, and then they will vanquish these Christians. Sometimes they will come and conquer these, vanquish these Muslims. Constant fights actually. Present Turkey actually has been a battleground for so many centuries. So many battles actually happened in that particular geography between the Europeans and also the people from the Asia Minor, because they practice two different religions. And also if you just see, particularly in Northern Europe, the climate is very cold climate, right? So to provide for the basic necessities of life is not an easy thing. You have to fight a harder battle with the nature. Nature itself actually is not very cooperative. To grow food also, it's not easy, that cold climate. Same is the case with Central Asia also. The climate is not so favorable, particularly for Arabs actually. You see Central Asian deserts there, Asia Minor also. The soil is not that fertile and not that rich. So to grow food itself is a huge task. So, and also there are enemies. We don't know who will invade you. There is no security. And so they will have to defend themselves. They will have to be on war all the time. And that did not allow them actually to turn inward or to develop religion beyond a point. They had faiths, but religion as a science. Whereas in India, it was completely different. Religion developed as a kind of science. So it's not just a faith, it's not just a belief. Who am I? What is my real nature? How can I find the truth? As I said that now. So they have the greatest conclusion that they had come is the universe actually is only an appearance in the firmament of the mind. And the next question arose, what is mind? A mind is based on this ego sense, mind is based on individuality, and mind is based on desire. And conquer the desire and let me see. And they had conquered the desire. And then the problem of the universe, the problem of suffering, the problem of life and death actually is solved once for all. So by conquering the mind, you will be able to go beyond the samsara. So that goal they have set before the whole of the civilization. The only civilization that has set such a high goal, the highest goal, which helps you to attain total fulfillment. Whole civilization actually has followed it for centuries. And still actually it is there. Because that is our lifeblood, as Swami says. Spirituality is our lifeblood. The bedrock on which the national edifice has been built, he says. It is there very much. Now, if you just see, we have suddenly forgotten all the great values of our civilization. We have lost our moorings, as it were. We have forgotten our roots. Suddenly now the tendency is to imitate the West. That is actually suicidal, Swami says. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Yours is an old civilization. You have taken up a greater ideal or a higher ideal. Why you imitate inferior races? They have just the other day actually they could become prosperous. And that's why they wanted to have some bhoga. They want to enjoy. But you are done with your bhoga. You have come here for yoga. You have had the highest goal in front of you, highest ideal. Now we are imitating them, means you consider us as inferior and we have to progress like them. So these are all shallow ideas have come in, have set in, and that's the reason today one kind of imitation is going on. That's why Indian society is at a crossroads. You don't know what you are. You're not able to figure out. So you're trying to imitate the ideals which are alien to you, which don't suit you, and that's why actually you're like fish out of water. The constitution itself is different. The physical and the mental constitution. We are basically contemplatives. If you just see today, I mean, just recently we had this corona and still it is there, of course, in the West, America. They said Indians had no problem confining themselves to homes. Okay, the local Americans found it very difficult. They come out on streets and they oppose this lockdown and they demonstrated against the government. And so they lift the lockdown. There was no such protest from Indians because there was no difficulty for Indians to confine themselves to their homes for 6 months because that meditation actually is in your blood. You are basically a contemplative. Though Indians also have become very active now, they are thoroughly, thorough going out, extroverts now. They still, but it was not that difficult for Indians. Contemplation is in your blood because you have been a meditating race. You're all the descendants of Buddha. We are descendants of rishis. So there's a lot of difference between one race and another race. As Swamiji says, actually, they have their own great things. Not that everything about them actually is inferior and everything that we have got is superior. They have got something excellent about them and we have got something excellent about us. So there should be an exchange, a healthy exchange between the East and the West. The West actually is fundamentally a materialistic civilization. As they had not the strength, actually, I am using the word strength deliberately. To turn inward, you require a lot of courage and strength. They actually concentrated more on the external world. So they went on actually manipulating matter. So all this, technology and science, particularly the industrialization and post-industrialization, whatever that actually, because they concentrated only that external world. Because they thought by manipulating, by creating these comforts, you'll be able to create a great civilization. The ambition, the intention was good. Ultimately to help man gain more happiness and more comfort. But did it really happen? Has all the technology that we have developed has helped us actually to progress as a civilization in terms of human values and in terms of peace and happiness, in terms of joy and fulfillment? It has not really helped us to the extent that we have hoped for. Definitely it has brought us to some more comfort and convenience. If you just see the people who lived some 50 or 60 years back, everything actually you have to do the manually, right? You have to use muscle for everything, but now you have invented machine. But of course, the side effects are always there actually, as you are not doing actually minimum exercise now. You have to do special exercise. The earlier days, they were never talking about exercise. They're not necessary. There are no machines. Everything you have to do physically. In the process, actually, exercise will get done automatically. You use your muscle enough. And so all the food that you have taken actually is consumed. No excess calories in the blood. And so there is no scope for diabetes. And now you have invented machine for everything. And now you are not actually expending your energy. You take 3,500 calories and you will do one work of 500 calories. 3,000 extra calories are there where they will go and they will make you turn diabetic, right? For that, actually, you have to burn them off. How to burn them? You have to go to gym or do exercise or yoga. Yoga, right? So this is how you have invented machines. Then there are side effects are also there. So it's not actually, you can't say that this is we have progressed and the technology has helped us significantly. Yes, it brought us some comfort and some convenience. But there are other side effects are also there, if you see. So basically, they actually concentrated on the external world, the physical world. They wanted to actually change. Swamiji, when in the last decade of, when he was in America, he said that in those days it was not that intense, the materialism compared to the materialism that we have, compared to the machinery that we use today. 120 years back when Vivekananda was in America, it was actually very limited and a preliminary stage, if you ask me. Actually, little technology was just trickling in, coming in. But seeing that, Swami says, so they are making 5 elements dance to their tune. They're seeing the opulence and the luxury and the technology in America. Okay, the last decade of 19th century, Swami said, so they are making the 5 elements dance to their tune, he said. So that means so much of focus was given to the external world or inventing machines. But they were not happy naturally. And so he said that you need to take the spirituality because happiness actually is a state of mind, nothing to do with manipulation of matter. Machines won't make man happy. So you can create some machines, it's okay. But he clearly said that if you don't take the spiritual ideals of the East actually is specialized in spirituality and the West is specialized in materialism, specialized in technology. You have to take the spirituality of the East. East, I mean the entire East actually. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all religions actually started only in the East. They were originated in the East. West actually had not contributed in not a single religion. So the religious ideas and spiritual thought actually the characteristic of the races of the East. And among all the races in the East actually, if you have to promote something as a science, because now today Western people, they are rational, they are actually in the sense that they want you to explain your philosophy rationally. If it appeals to their logic, then they subscribe it to. If it doesn't appeal to their logic, they don't take it. So they don't take it. No, 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 it's a faith and you cannot question it. Actually, you have to believe it. This is this. They don't agree. But the only philosophy, the only religion, because it's not religion actually, it's actually science of inner being, science of subject to science, that stands to the test of reason is Vedanta. Because Rishis actually never subscribed to a belief. They just explored, just as the people of the West explored the external world. Rishis or forefathers explored the inner world, the subjective dimension, and they came to certain conclusions and they invented certain methods and to attain to the absolute by transcending the mind. That's what the Indian spirituality is all about. That's why they are subscribing to Vedantic thought today, because it is scientific, it is rational, it is logical. Any logical brain actually accepts this. So it has been going on in a gentle way, though we have not been a missionary race. And this subtle thought actually is percolating and going gently. Not after Ashoka also, for many years actually, this Indochina, all East Asian countries, the Buddhism has gone and Hinduism has gone. You might have heard this Angkor Wat, you're all famous, you know that, Angkor Wat. And Cambodia, in northern Cambodia, a big temple built in 12th century, in 400 acres. The temple was built by Suryavarman II. Suryavarman, the name actually, Cambodia, they ruled Cambodia. So the temple was built in 400 acres. It was a Hindu temple, a temple actually dedicated to Lord Vishnu, but by the end of 12th century itself, it became a Buddhist temple because the people of the country had embraced Buddhism and they converted it into a Buddhist temple. But it doesn't matter, but it was Hindu temple. Suryavarman built it, 400 acres, you just see. I mean, the spread of Sanatan Dharma, spread of Hinduism and Hindu thought, it has gone to the entire East and also to West. In Greek civilization, the ancient Greek, actually, most of the people had migrated from Asia Minor. They are only the Athenians, and they only contributed to that thought. Swamiji says, Swami Vivekananda. So, the East actually has a particular character, the West has a particular character. The West actually, they are basically Rajasic races because they eat a lot of animal food. I'm just saying, actually, animal food, when you eat, actually, naturally, there will be more calories, right? You have to have a strong digestive system to digest flesh, to digest animal food. If they're living in a cold country, they needed more calories also. Just to produce heat from within the body, actually, you need more calories. If you just take vegetables, actually, calories won't be sufficient, probably. And so, the climate in which actually they had to live is not that favorable, and they had to use an animal food, and that naturally makes you more Rajasic. Where your mind gets so much of calories, you will become by nature an extrovert. It will be difficult actually to sit in contemplation. You just see animals like tiger and lion, actually they eat which actually raw flesh. They find it very difficult. They are very restless. And whereas an elephant or whereas a cow actually which eats grass is very calm and gentle. Elephant is such a giant animal but moves very gently, right? You don't see any restlessness about it. Whereas tigers and lions and hyenas and wild dogs, you just see they're so restless, the cheese. So more calories were required, and so they had to eat this animal food, and that's the reason actually they became great fighters. So never had time for contemplation. The situation, the political situation they were in, and also the constitutional makeup, physical and psychological, did not allow them to ponder deep on the subjective dimension. Whereas in the East, in India, particularly the civilization that started in that Ganga, Yamuna, Doyab, you just throw a few grains and the crop is ready. So 3 months over, you have harvested the crop. For 1 year, actually, you're leisure. The rest of the 9 months, you are on leisure. What to do? And then they thought, the intellectual culture, art, poetry, music, everything actually. So the Swamiji says a beautiful statement that West is full of workers and the East is full of mystics. The West is full of workers. They only work and work and work because they are restless. They need work. They can't sit with themselves. Because the food that you take is like that. So you have to do something about it. You will be up and doing all the time. You have to have something on your hands to do. Otherwise, you'll go crazy. But here, it's not like that. We become an expert, in turning our attention inward and unraveling the mystery of the subjective dimension of human being. And that leisure, they use it for that purpose. And then They solved the mystery of it, and then they said that human being is one with. So this diversity is only apparent. The differentiation is because of the mind, and transcend the mind is only homogeneous consciousness. It is all one absolute that is actually finding expression as different. But this differentiation is not real. It's only a myth. It's only maya. The world is only chimera. So it's not real, it's only an appearance. That then they went on teaching the same thing. You just conquer the mind and just know the truth. Conquer the mind and know the truth. And use this instrument only for that purpose. Don't use it for any other purpose. Once the basic necessities of life are satisfied. Not that we have not the capacity, not the brains actually to invent this machinery, to invent all the things that we have now. They had it, but they were sure that it would enslave man to machine. It would enslave man to matter. In the process, competition would increase and everybody would go for more of the physical comfort, and then human values will go down. And I see you as a competitor. I can't actually really love you because you're my competitor. I'll make you my enemy. So then people will go away from spirituality, go away from truth. Once you go away from truth, actually, you won't be able to lead a peaceful and happy and contented, fulfilled life. So you'll go away from fulfillment because you're going away from truth. So the rishis actually could protect and could the civilization for quite good, long period of time. The geography only protected the race, but after the advent of British, then there is intermingling started between the European civilization, the Eastern civilization, and Western civilization, Indian civilization. What they were doing, we came to know. What we are doing, they came to know, and they considered as barbarians and heathens. Actually, they thought actually we are uncivilized because they had little more better clothing. And then we subscribed to their view. We thought actually real. Otherwise, how could that they become such military power? How could that they become so prosperous? All we thought like that. But we have become poor because we never cared for this physical wealth. Not that we have no capacity to generate wealth, not that we have no capacity to invent weapons, not that we have no capacity to create better technology. We do not use our mind in that direction. And that is actually our glory. And today we don't even know our glory. We don't even know the greatness of our roots and greatness of our civilization. Then how you can have a genuine pride? You'll only do the imitation. Now the whole race is imitating other inferior races. That's why Swami says, you want, oh Hindu, you have so much to give to the rest of the world. The spiritual thought will help man civilize himself. And you need to give it. You alone have it. No other race has it. So preserve it, cherish this treasure that God has given you, and try to give it to others, and actually they will be grateful to you. That it is a responsibility of all the modern Indians. We have to do that. But what happened in our country? Post-independence, without actually understanding our own roots, we have developed an educational system which actually by default alienated us from our roots. It was not intentional, but unintentionally it has happened. It just alienated from our roots. Because the British left, but the hangover continued. So what kind of education system we need? They thought actually, the British actually the most advanced race because they could conquer us and rule over for these many years. So Western nations are advanced nations. Let us imitate them. Let us ape them. Let us actually bring in their education system that will help us. So all the ideas are borrowed ideas because you have forgotten your own roots. That's why Swamiji has warned us and cautioned us. You have so much to give. Let the best that you have, because you are a very old civilization. You are taught on the ultimate mystery of life. When this Western nation, they were not even born. When their forefathers were still in forest, wearing bark and eating animal food, raw flesh, you produced sages. You produced people who had, the experience of Brahman, who had the experience of truth. Oh, Indian, you are not ordinary. You just try to find out who you are. But that did not happen. That did not happen because now their ideals are not suiting us, that materialism, because there are small populations, more resources they had, and that's why they could prosper like that. But we never cared for this kind of prosperity because we wanted to turn inward and we want to find out the truth from within actually. So, but now imitation of the West means we just want to become prosperous like them. We want to have more of material wealth, and everybody in the rat race now, let me have more and let me have more. In the process, corruption and the competition and stress and this all restlessness, tension and anxiety, all these things have come. Okay, if you become contemplative, actually, that's it. Simple. You turn inward and see. Wait. Mind will subside slowly. The thought will come down. Intensely restless mind will actually subside slowly. It will become restful. Then there will come a time you'll be able to find out what is actually that's still actually making my mind a little restless, or still some activities going on within. Then you will find that it little ego sense, this desire is doing that. What desire I have? You just turn inward and plug that desire out, and then see the mind disappears. Because mind cannot survive without desire. Mind cannot survive without ego sense. At that point, you touch the infinite dimension of your personality. And that is an experience which cannot be explained, and we have to be on that. So this pravrutti and nivrutti cannot be combined together. See, we need some abhyudaya also, some nivrutti also is necessary, some pravrutti also is necessary, some material wealth also is necessary, but you should be able to draw the line, this much is sufficient, but don't imitate others. Those ideals will not suit you. We are a different civilization, we are different ideals we have. Vivekananda says every nation has its own ideal. The goal of some countries, actually, other countries in the West, actually, they wanted to become material powers. They wanted to become military power. They wanted to become economic superpowers. And our neighbor China also has the same goal now. They wanted to become military power and economic power. Yes, actually, we need to have military. We need to defend ourselves when somebody invades. Okay, you have to have that all these things in place. But at the same time, as a race, what you want to do, what you want to give to the rest of the world, you have to ponder on that, and then you have to go deep into the your own scriptures, and they contain such precious gems. You are not barbaric. You are not an uncivilized human being. Not that we need to learn civilization from them. And Swamiji asks actually the Americans and the Australians and New Zealanders and these English people, where have you gone and what have you done with those aborigines? You have exterminated them, he says. In that East and West, there is a book by Swami Vivekananda, the East and the West. He compares East with the West. You just look at your history. You have gone to the alien lands, and there what you did, you exterminated the local populations. You thought actually they were barbarians. You thought actually they were not worthy of life. They were wild beasts, you thought, and you killed them like that. So everywhere, wherever they went, in Australia it happened, New Zealand it happened, America it happened, Red Indians, they were slaughtered. Right? They thought actually they were uncivilized barbarians. They were looking like animal kind of life. No, those people, the aborigines, native to that particular geography, they had their own understanding of life. They were living in harmony with nature. They never disturbed nature. Today, the modern man is thinking that actually we are wrong. They are right. In India also it is happening a process that all the people who are living in forest, actually we need to bring them into the society. We have to pull them into the mainstream life. Why? You have so much of stress and anxiety and tension. They don't have. Forest, they are living happily. How can you say that actually you are more developed and more civilized than them? So ultimately an individual is more developed or more civilized. What is the yardstick to measure? The yardstick to measure should be happiness and joy. If a tribal person living in the midst of the forest is more happy than you, and how can you consider the other person, that tribe actually, as an uncivilized human being? What right you have to come to such a conclusion? You don't have even as much peace as he enjoys, and you are uncivilized anyway. You have to learn things from him. They are living in perfect peace and they are living in perfect harmony with nature. So don't come to such conclusions. We come to such conclusions, and with regard to races, with regard to individual groups. So we think actually because we are majority and our conclusions and our perceptions are absolute, we want to thrust them upon everybody. The Europeans did it, and they considered the aborigines as uncivilized barbarians, and they killed them without any scruple on the conscience, right? And here also they tried, but it did not happen. But we could not figure out what we are, because both extremes are there. Worship of a stone, worship of the tree, too, actually highest Advaita and philosophy. They could not figure out, neither the Muslims nor the English people who ruled us. They could not figure out the religion of this race, because it is so vast, so varied, and so beautiful, so colorful. And that's the reason they could not disturb. And there is an inherent resilience in it, because we are not a proselytizing religion. We never use sword to conquer converts, to attract converts into this religion's faith, because very subtle and very gentle. And so it moves, it goes. It has that inherent resilience in it. So as Swamiji says, they had their ideals are great for them. We have our ideals are great for us. Let there be healthy exchange between the East and the West, so that an ideal civilization can be built. But when you consider yourself as an inferior person, when you consider yourself because you're not as rich as they are, and so the ideals that you have before you and the traditions and the customs that you follow are inferior to them, and then once you consider, you give them up, right? What you will do when the ideals that you have cherished for 5,000 years, when you understand them as inferior ideals and ideals, customs and traditions, you will give them up. That is the danger that we are living in now. Not at all. The ideals that you cherish over Indian, actually, not the ordinary ideals. They are the highest ideals. They are time-tested ideals. Hold on to them, and the rest of the world also needs that. And give them. Otherwise, that materialism will kill them. It's always happening. It's already happening. So, Swamiji beautifully says, So why actually there is so much of poverty in India? For this also he gives a rational explanation. The whole universe actually is created by one divine mother. So cosmic consciousness, God. We are all children of God, all races, whether barbaric, civilized or uncivilized, all actually are the children of the same Lord. So why God has given so much of prosperity to them? Physical prosperity he has given. Why actually has given India, the Eastern nations actually, he kept them so poor. He has given some other wealth to you. But now when you talk about wealth, you understand only the physical wealth, dollar or rupee in that wealth. He has given you wealth, power of knowledge, the wealth of knowledge God has given you. And why there is so much of poverty in India? Swami says this is the cost of producing one Buddha and one Mirabai. It may sound little, illogical, but actually the cost of producing one Buddha and one Mirabai, what does it mean? Because actually Divine Mother has given you, the Lord actually has permitted you to have one Buddha and one Mirabai. Does it mean that actually so many people should languish in poverty? See, in India, actually, we have all kinds of people. We have tamasic people, rajasic people, and sattvic people. So this way, it's a very heterogeneous society. Whereas in the West, actually, an average person actually is rajasic basically. There's not that much of tamas actually. There's no inertia. There's no sloth in them. They just want to be up and doing all the time. Always want to be active. Always want to be restless. Okay, but here we have both the people who are very calm. They wanted to be active. They can be active, but they give up that activity and they can't focus on themselves, and they generate peace where they're so focused and the mind is so restful and they generate peace through spirituality. And we have here tamasic population also. That's why actually there's so much of poverty in country. So many 5-year plans they have implemented, but still, so much of help government is trying and so many schemes they have implemented, but still it's not happening because a vast majority of population is still in tamas, where there's no desire in them actually to come up in life. Vivekananda says, unless and until people are taught to help themselves, even by bringing the wealth of the whole world into one village, you can't help the village, he says. One single village you cannot help, he says. Now people are asking you, give me what you can give. I don't want to work hard and grow. I have no desire to come up in life. When there is no desire in you to come up in life, if somebody gives you wealth, you will just use that wealth and afterwards again you become poor, right? That's what has happened to this country. In spite of giving so much of support from government side for the last 70 years, significant improvement in terms of, bringing the people above poverty line has not happened because a vast majority of population in this country still are in deep tamas, inertia and sloth. There is no desire. In childhood, I used to see a lot of, backward area I come from. There the people, the Integrated Tribal Development Agency used to do a lot actually for them, but the people actually were not receptive. They had no zeal and there had no desire in them actually to come up in life. Okay, let me take this loan, let me take actually this help from the government and let me grow, let me become richer and richer, let me improve my standard of life, let me compare myself with others. That kind of, they're just full of sloth and inertia, no desire, no ambition in them. And the West people are full of ambition, full of desire, full of rajas, they're restless. Now they're seeking spirituality. So but in the East, in India, we have both people who are tamasic and there are also people who are rajasic and there are people who are sattvic, actually, people very close to the Lord. So they had the capacity and the intelligence to become rich and to create wealth, but they don't go for it because how much of wealth you need really, because there is something like death actually. You will have to get out of this world. This life is a brief happening. So that is the highest thing that I can do in this brief period of time, that is to pursue the truth. And that's why they would become, ascetics. They would give up everything and become ascetics because that will give you the highest prize. Buddha, what did he do? Okay, he could have become an emperor if he wanted. With the kind of strength that he had, he could have become, for sure, a great emperor. He could have become the ruler of a vast territory. But he didn't go for it. He just took up a begging bowl and turned inward and had attained the highest, namely nirvana. So there is significant difference, vast difference between one race and another race and one civilization and another civilization. The Eastern civilization, they have their best, and Western civilization, they have their best. This is the time. Actually, for the intermingling has already, the mix is taking place. So people are coming from there and we are going over there, and vast in Indian diaspora is spread all over the world, all across the world. And also through internet actually, the world has become a global village now. And so the time, now this is the time. But the West has the feeling that they are the superior race and because they have technology and they have more prosperity. But you need to understand, the people of the East, that you have so much to give to the people of the West. You have spiritual wealth. This wealth is also not an ordinary wealth. Cherish that spiritual wealth and civilize the whole mankind. Only when you have spiritual wealth A real civilization can be had through spirituality only. Spirituality reduces competition. Spirituality encourages you to practice self-sacrifice. Through self-sacrifice, you will attain to the highest. All this competition, all this corruption will go only when the spiritual values are brought into the society. So that helps the man to civilize himself. Otherwise, we don't know where it leads to. At an individual level and at a collective level, this competition between country and country to become a superpower, to become an economic or military superpower. But an individual and individual, let me have more wealth, let me actually aggrandize my, let me grow at the expense of others. So we see actually the consequences of it in today's society. So much of stress and tension and anxiety. So this spiritual wealth we need to absorb first ourselves, and then we need to give it to other races. Then only a great civilization can be had. A great civilization can be created. That was Vivekananda's dream. That was his idea. He thought that would happen. So, not that the East actually should take the pride that we have the best, and not that West should take the pride that they have the best. No. You have got something best and worst, and we have got something best and worst. What we can learn from the West? Team spirit, or ability to work in a team, the patriotism, okay, human values, respecting citizenship awareness, respecting the fellow citizen. All these things they have got. We have so much to learn. But at the same time, family values, spirituality, okay, meditation, all this they can learn from us. It's a ritual thought. So let us hope, let us pray that there will be healthy exchange of the best between the two civilizations, the Eastern and Western civilization, between the East and the West. So there is a lot to tell. Actually, this is a vast subject, and Vivekananda Swamiji's book is there. The East and the West. I request all of you to go through that book. You will get a clear idea how actually East differs from the West. A kaleidoscopic view, because that is also actually Swamiji has just touched the fringe. But otherwise, there is a lot to tell. The Mark Twain has made a great statement with regard to India, because you need to remember that uh, American author, publisher, thinker, and humorist. He said, "So far as I am able to judge, nothing seems to have been left undone, either by man or nature, to make India the more sun visits on his rounds. Nothing seems to have been forgotten, nothing is left undone." So that's the actual tribute that he pays to India. Nothing seems to have been, forgotten either by man or nature. That means so much the nature has given, so much actually, nature he meant actually probably God, so much has been done by man himself. So that is the greatness of this civilization. A Westerner has said such a great tribute he has paid. So, but we should know what is that? What is the wealth of India? True wealth of India? True wealth of India is spirituality. So we shall stop here for today. Yes, we shall meditate for 2 minutes before we disperse. Ooh.